Hey everyone, it's Toby. So today I wanted to talk about something that I haven't really touched on yet, and I'm sorry if there's a weird kind of acoustics. This room is really tiny that I'm in the library right now. Um, but I wanted to talk about divination and the different types and why and how and all of that. And I have a couple of the tarot cards that I use and my set of runes that I made. And before anyone says, I know runes are not Wiccan. I know tarot cards are not Wiccan, they're divination methods. Divination is a part of my practice. They are not Wiccan, I don't claim them to be part of my religion, but they are part of my practice. Disclaimer, because I know it's going to happen. So first, I want to go into talking about some of the decks that I own. I guess I'll talk about my first deck that I ever bought. And that's something I don't believe in the whole you have to be gifted a tarot deck thing. I think that if you want to buy a tarot deck, that's great, and you do what feels right for you. So this is the first deck that I ever bought, and it's the Deviant Moon deck. So the cards are kind of really dark and a little more out there. This deck tends to read a lot darker as well, but it's such a beautiful deck. The colors are really, really vivid, and there's a lot of symbolism in the cards themselves, so you can always kind of get a sense of what the cards are trying to say, which I find is hard sometimes with some decks, but not with this one. This one is very clear on what it's trying to tell you. I'm trying to find my favorite card right now so I can show you all, which is the Ace of Wands. And like, this is clearly the Ace of Wands. Like, Ace of Wands is all about new beginnings and rebirth and growth, and this card is literally that. It's new life, and I love it. So that is the Deviant Moon Tarot. I definitely think that it's a good, solid deck to start with. If you don't mind the darker aspects of the deck, like it can get pretty dark at points, but it's a very, very beautiful deck. My favorite deck that I guess I'll say my favorite for last. The next deck that I have is Tarot of the Old Path. This one I have not really used that much, but the colors are really, really bright, and the cards are kind of a good size for a tarot deck. So is the Deviant Moon. Deviant Moon is a little bit taller than Tarot of the Old Path, I think. Yeah, it's like a little bit taller, but they're both not very wide, so they fit in the palm of your hand really, really well. But Tarot of the Old Path is just like, the colors are so, so beautiful. Some of the cards change a little, and like, this is the Ace of Wands, they call it the Ace of Rods in this one. But you can see it's very clearly also all about that, like, the new growth kind of thing. There's like, the wand is sprouting leaves, and there's stuff growing. So that one is still pretty close. And then this is supposed to be the Chariot, but they call it Mastery in this one. Some of the names changed a little bit, but they're still very clear on what the card is supposed to be. And this is the World, which I think is very, very, like, close to what the world means. And if you look closely, they're the symbols for first, second, and third degree initiation that are used in Gardner's original Book of Shadows. Those are the symbols that he used for those ranks, I believe. Not Gardnerian, so I don't know. But from everything that I've read, those are the symbols that are used. So, which is what the world is kind of about. It's kind of coming full circle and then starting over. But yeah, these cards are just kind of super, super beautiful. They're very, I wouldn't say very Rider-Waite, but they do have a lot of like the same symbolism that the Rider-Waite had. A lot of Kabbalah and ceremonial magic kind of stuff mixed in. You can kind of see it in the world and in Lovers. There's just some like very not like totally pagan kind of things, stuff that we adopted from Kabbalah and ceremonial magic are kind of mixed in with this. But the deck overall is just really vivid. The cards are really bright, and then the back is pretty simple. It's just kind of like it's an infinity symbol, almost, in like flowers and vines. So this is Tarot of the Old Path. I don't read with this one very much. It doesn't really connect with me as well as my other two decks do, but it's definitely a good deck. So this is my favorite deck. I got it from Etsy, and I will post the artist down in the bottom because I think that her decks are amazing. So it's called the Efflorescent Tarot, and this is the back, and it's just like mirrored blooming flowers. And she has two versions. The artist has two versions. There's a black and white and a colored version, but they're beautiful cards. Like they're pen and inks, and they're just gorgeous. They're a little bit larger than a normal sized tarot deck. They kind of fill up my whole hand, which makes them a little hard to handle sometimes. But the cards are just magnificent. I love them. I love everything about them. My favorite card in this deck is one that most people probably would say is not their favorite card to get in a reading, and it's not the Tower. But the Tower is a really beautiful card in this deck. But actually my favorite from this deck is the Devil. Because the Devil's kind of all about like letting go of the stuff that's holding you back, letting go of all the sludge and the grime and all the stuff that's kind of holding you back from your true potential, and it's kind of bogging you down, and that eventually can lead to more harmful actions that happen, or you finally like giving out from carrying all this weight, and then the Tower happens. But this is the Devil, and it's just kind of like a goat with trash and garbage just covering him entirely. And I think it is probably one of the most beautiful cards in this entire deck. And to pieces, my favorite card in the whole deck. The colored version is really, really pretty. I personally really enjoy the black and white version just because it is so striking to read. Like the color version is really, really pretty, but this is just the contrast in these between the black and the white, and like being able to see, like being able to vision your own colors on these instead of the colors that the artist draws, I think is something really important. Being able to see what your mind sees and not so much what the artist sees kind of helps, especially with cards like this where there's so much going on. It kind of helps to be able to just picture it in your own head. But I highly recommend this. It's the Efflorescent Tarot on Etsy. I'll post a link for everyone. But this deck is really, really awesome. It's my favorite of my three. So next is my runes, and I keep them in this little drawstring bag that I made. It's not the best bag. It's kind of just cut fabric with holes poked in it and then some yarn to hold it together. But it's a bag, and it holds all of my runes, which I made myself, and then I wood burned the runes into them. They're just little runes, and then I sanded the edges down, and then I soaked them in oil that I made with cinnamon and a couple other herbs to give it a little bit of kind of cleansing and energy and stuff like that. I pretty much use cinnamon for everything. It's one of my like go-to herbs. These are just like cute little handmade runes. If I can, I like to make everything myself, especially if I'm going to be the one to use it. just so that I have some of my own energy added into it. I don't read runes as often as I would like, but it's definitely on my list of types of divination to eventually master, because tarot is very good at kind of reading really far into the future, whereas runes are really good at reading like in the now, like what's going on right now, what do I need to know, what is my life doing, how are things working. Tarot can give you that, but more often than not, tarot is telling you stuff that's happening a little bit further down the road, or you can get stuff that's happening right now with tarot, but it's not as common as you would get with runes. Runes are much more like direct. Some of the other things that I want to talk about with divination is scrying, because I do a lot of scrying, whether it's in water or fire or crystals. But it's another one of the types of divination that I use often. And you can pretty much scry with anything. I really like doing it with candle flames and water. Those two I find work best for me. With water, you can pretty much do it however you want. I either do a bowl with black ink added to the water, or I'll do a dark bottomed bowl with water, and then I usually have a candle lit, and then I will have like just a totally dark room and one candle, and I'll sit and concentrate on the bottom of the bowl, not actually on the surface of the water. I kind of look through the water. If I can't see the bottom of the bowl, I still pretend that I'm looking through the water. I want to be able to see inside the water, basically. And I just do that until I start to get images. And people often are going to say that you're going to see images on the surface of the water or in reflections. Honestly, when you're doing scrying, it's a meditative form of divination. Your subconscious is going to load images into your head, and those are going to be what you're interpreting, not something that you're going to see on the surface. I know there's a lot of misconceptions about how scrying actually works. With other forms of scrying, it's totally possible to see images inside, like the crystal, and even in the water. Like, that's possible. It's much more likely that you're going to actually see stuff in your head that then your brain kind of puts there, and it's usually your subconscious telling you that. Because if you're naturally inclined to psychic stuff, or if you are doing divination, that's basically what's going to happen. Is your subconscious is going to be like, these are things, and here they are, and done. That's not to say that divination isn't divination, it's just that your subconscious is loading images for you to interpret. It's like with tarot, you know what the cards mean, whereas with scrying, you're getting the direct information and then you have to process it somehow, and your subconscious does that by giving you images. So you're getting information that's then getting interpreted by your subconscious for you to use, which is why we do meditation for those types of purposes. Those types of divination are meditations. They involve trance states that if you're not trained to do, if you don't know how those work, it will be a little bit harder for you to do divination through that kind of method. The same works with like fire or crystals. You basically want to just kind of intently stare into the item, not just at it, but through it. And eventually you will go into a trance state. If you know how to get there even faster, that's great. If you want to do like a tea with mugwort and then burn some incense that's good for divination, those things will help you get into that state much, much faster. But that's how those types of divination tend to work, is through meditative trance that you can then use to scry and to bring on visions and images, and that's how that type of divination works, at least for me. That's the best way that I've found to describe it to people who ask, is that anything with scrying or those types of like staring intently at something to divine is usually done through meditative trance. And if you're looking to learn how to do meditative trance, this book actually has a couple like active meditations that are really good for that, for learning how to go into trance states. There's the candle meditation part, and then labyrinth walking is also really good for trance states. It's an active form of divination, so it's not as it can be a little distracting for some people because you are moving. But if you're keened into the activity and to the meditation, it can actually be a really powerful tool in divining as well, because then you can use the clouds and other things around you to divine. Cloud scrying is a great way to get information. So that's kind of just my take on divination. There's many other forms of divination. This is not the only type. So you can do tea leaves or a scrying mirror that you make or whatever. There's many types of divination. I just find that these types tend to work best for me. But leave comments down below about what kind of divination you guys use, and like and subscribe. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.